my wife does. This is intense. Okay, I believe we're live on YouTube, and then I'm going to share the first verse. So if anybody would like to do the Mangala Charanam, that'd be wonderful.
You do it, Paul.
I should do it, Adi? Okay. Om Agyanatamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahidam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakantvitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopi Kakanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, the first verse today is Canto 10, Chapter 33, Text 29. Do we have any volunteers to read? If not, I'd be happy to read it for you, but I want to give everybody the opportunity. Thank you again so much for the prayers of Damodar for you. Krishna Daya, Haribo, thank you. Please.
Shri Shuka Uvacha Dharma Vyatikramo Drushta Ishwaranam cha sahasam Tejiyasam na doshaya Vahne sarva bhujo yatha. Should I read the word to word also, Prabhu? Or translation? Should I read the word to word or translation, Prabhu? What should I read?
I'm sorry, I was muted. If you'd like, you can read the word for sure. If not, we can go on to the translation. It's up to you.
Yeah. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Shri Shukadeva Goswami said, Dharma Vyatikramaha, the transgression of religious or moral principles. Drishta, seen. Ishwarana, of powerful controllers. Cha, even. Sahasam, due to audacity. Tejiyasam, who are spiritually potent. Na, does not. Doshaya, lead to any fault. Vahne, of fire. Sarva, everything. Bhuja, devouring. Yatha, as. Translation and purport by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sukadeva Goswami said, the status of powerful controllers is not harmed by any apparently audacious transgression of morality we may see in them. For they are just like fire which devours everything fed into it and remains unpolluted. Purport. Great potent personalities are not ruined by an apparent transgression of moral principles. Sridhar Swami mentions the examples of Brahma, Indra, Soma, Vishwamitra and others. A fire devours all that is fed into it, but the fire does not change its nature. Similarly, a great personality does not fall from his position by an irregularity in behavior. In the following verse, however, Shukadeva Goswami makes it clear that if we try to imitate the great personalities ruling the universe, the result will be catastrophic.
I think it would be good to do both verses together because they're inextricably linked. The explanation in this set in the next verse goes directly with this one. So I think we can discuss them together. If you wouldn't mind doing the second one, Krishna Dai, or if somebody else would like to.
I'm okay, Prabhu. I can.
Okay, great.
Naitat samachare jato manasapi hyanishwaraha vinasyatyaacharan modhya atyatha rudroptijam visham. Word to word meaning. Na, not. Etat, this. Samachare, should perform. Jato, ever. Manasa, with the mind. Api, even. He, certainly. Anishwara, one who is not a controller. Vinashyati, he is destroyed. Acharan, acting. Maudhyat, out of foolishness. Yatha, as. Arudra, one who is not Lord Rudra. Abdijan, generated from the ocean. Visham, poison. Translation: one who is not a great controller should never imitate the behavior of ruling personalities, even mentally. If out of foolishness an ordinary person does imitate such behavior, he will simply destroy himself, just as a person who is not Rudra would destroy himself if he tried to drink an ocean of poison. Purport: Lord Shiva or Rudra once drank an ocean of poison, and the result was that an attractive blue mark appeared on his neck. But if we were to drink even a drop of such poison, we would die immediately. Just as we should not imitate this pastime of Shiva's, we should not imitate Lord Krishna's activities with gopis. We should clearly understand that while Lord Krishna certainly descends to demonstrate religious principles, he also descends to demonstrate that he is God and we are not. That also must be demonstrated. Lord enjoys with his internal potency and thus attracts us to the spiritual platform. We should not try to imitate Krishna, for we will suffer severely.
Krishna, thank you very much for those readings. So, I've not participated directly in a community class before, so I'm going to ask for everybody to be involved in this. I do think that it is very excellent that Shukadeva Goswami, after telling the story of the Rasalila, explains that this is not something that should be imitated because it is unique to Krishna. And these two verses are a great warning with the reminder of Shiva. And I know that for myself, attempting to just even multitask in this case by watching chat and trying to listen and talk to people and make sure the YouTube is live is very difficult. I can't imagine trying to participate in something with multiple people at the same time. So there's a challenge there. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share, like to open up with or add? Please feel free to unmute.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Paul, for shouldering on today. So it's so beautiful to see the husband supporting his wife, as you always do. And again, all of us send love to Damodar Priya, but I just love the simplicity of the purport. It's like, where does it say here? That he is God and we are not. I mean, let's just drop the mic on that one, because that's it. And, and that's really the crux of why we are where we are. We think that we can enjoy and be Krishna, and we simply cannot. And we're missing the boat about being who we really are. It's the old analogy of that, a fish and a bird do two different things. A fish does what it does. A bird does this thing, but a fish, I guess there are flying fish, but you know what I mean, cannot fly. And so we human beings, we get very smart and we think we're God, and simply, as it says, we are not. And so it's just, in a way, it's that simple, but we don't get it because we want to be the master and controller, and we're missing out of the juice of what we actually are, which is this beautiful servants. We have this opportunity. And the other thing that I was just thinking of, it is such a great analogy that it's poisonous. It is poisonous, this thinking that we're the controller. It is poisonous. Just the way that, Shiva drank the poison didn't affect Lord Shiva, but we can't indulge in this kind of thinking that we're master and controller because it's poisonous to us, to the garden of our heart. And then the last thing, and then I'll shut up, is that I immediately thought of that, the beautiful Gita verse that I love so much. It says, what great men do, others follow. And we do have an opportunity to be great people that other people follow, but not by being God, by showing our actual constitutional position, by being servants to God. And then maybe other people will follow that. That is our way of creating great people, not by trying to be God and not to try to imitate. So those thoughts all rushed into my head. And I just wanted to thank you so much for jumping in. I know it's not easy. So Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Jumunjai. Yes, that's wonderful. I love that being an example for people. We're not God. We're not trying to be, or hopefully are not trying to be God. It reminds me of something Gaur Kumar told me many years ago. It's important not to necessarily be a sage on the stage, but it's important to be a guide on the side. And that phrase, he has wonderful phrases like that. That one stuck with me for many years. And as a teacher, that's something that I tried to strive for in my teaching, was not trying to force my students to do something, but to just be an example and let them try to pick it up and follow. Jeffrey, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Krishna Daya, for reading the verses. I was struck by the exact thing that Jamuna Jaya brought up, was that he is God and you are not. But interesting that the warning comes with such a severe example of if you tried to drink an ocean of poison, you would die, right? But even so, if you think about if you were squeezed between me and a wall, or between an elephant and a wall, the elephant would do more damage. It's just the greater thing has more impact. But if an elephant bumps into you and breaks your leg, it's not out of the question. But if I were to bump into you and break your leg, well, I'm exhibiting more power than is really reasonable. And then the other thing I was thinking about in these verses was the whole idea of false renunciation. And if we simply imitate greater devotees, even not to the level of Lord Shiva, but maybe even just, a Swami or something like that, and mimic their behavior, then it becomes a false renunciation. And that we should really be aware that we are following our personal path towards Krishna and not someone else's. And those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, that's excellent, Jeffrey. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Prabhu.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu, we can hear you.
Yeah. I'm going to share something very deep and personal with all of you. And it is related to this topic that we're speaking on. And let me first say that I was very fortunate to meet Srila Prabhupada in 1972 here in New York in the Henry Street Temple. And I did have a profound experience, which I won't share because it's not part of the topic, but it's related. And that changed my life. That's the only reason why I'm sitting here today, is because of that profound experience. And one of my instructions, when I remember hearing Srila Prabhupada say, was this point of simplicity. Living a simple life and, following the basic principles, and then everything else comes after that. And Srila Prabhupada was the example of that. I'm very fortunate because I get to travel. I was in household life for 25 years, raised children, so now I'm in the next to the last stage of my life, so I get to travel all over. And everybody, and I'm also older, I'm, hitting an old age. And so, I've seen a few things, not only in ISKCON, but in general. And the topic that we're talking about, and I don't know how to I really want to give this, but I want to make it clear. It's not so important to me to understand the intimacies of Radha and Krishna. And I've seen a lot of devotees try to go there when they're not ready for it. And for me personally, I just basically want to follow the simple instructions that Srila Prabhupada has expressed. And if I get to that level, that's one point. But one of the things I think is in desperation, because everyone really wants to connect with Krishna, and they want to love Krishna, and they want to serve, and they want to that sometimes I've seen that we go into pastimes, into areas that are way above us, even going into other philosophies and mixing them with Krishna consciousness. And on this topic that we're talking about, it's very high, it's way above my head. I don't even personally, because I've also seen some damage that is done by trying to touch this subject matter, and it's been one. Prabhupada himself said that. But I guess there are those devotees who are on that level, but I'm just speaking personally. I don't have a great interest in trying to understand the intimacies of Radha and Krishna. And if that's a fault against me, that's because I'm not very elevated. I'm not on that level. I'm not very smart. I'm not educated. And I do have an autistic, I have other, anyway. But I think in a lot of cases, we need to, like I used to be a tennis pro, I used to teach, and there's always this thing about, even today, right now, the US Open is happening here in New York City. And there's a thing where even on the level and the intensity of some of these, they put their whole life in it. From 6 years old, they're swinging a racket. They're hitting 300, 400 tennis balls a day. And then at the level they're in now, to be able to play over here in Forest, in Queens, they go back to basics. And I think with us, a lot of it, sometimes it may be necessary to go back to the basics, the essentials of what our instructions are. Because in today's society, everything is so fast. We want things yesterday that we maybe should wait for till next week or next month or next year, because everything is just so past-paced. And so, on this very, very esoteric topic, I would like throw in a little caution is to make sure that you're doing the basics. And what are the basics? Following the 4 regulative principles and chanting Hare Krishna every day, not with your cell phone. This intimate relationship you want is already there. But, we're jumping. And I see this all the time. I don't mean to be critical because I'm basically preaching to myself, but I'm sharing some of this with everyone. But, before we can get into all these things, let's settle down and let's really take, advantage on what Prabhupada's given us and his initial instructions and his disciples have given us, those who are disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and really just sit down and dive into this, wonderful gift that we receive of taking shelter of the holy name. Let's take things progressively. I mean, even new devotees are coming in and they want to dive into all these esoteric topics and not even, so it's a little topsy-turvy. It's a little topsy-turvy. We have to purify ourselves first. The heart is hard. And it's very hard for a hard heart to understand a topic that's so, well, it's for me, I'm only speaking for myself. It's above me. I'm being perfectly honest. It's wonderful to listen to and to relish, but there's a certain point where I'm not mentally struggling to try to read more books and go into it, because Krishna will give you what you need. If you take the appropriate steps to Krishna, then Krishna will reciprocate. Without any extra endeavor or over endeavor or, trying to relish something that's there, but maybe we're not ready I don't know if I'm explaining this right, and I ask all of you to please forgive me because I'm speaking about my, my, inability to grasp the subject that we're on. But it's beautiful and it's wonderful hearing. But then I leave it there and I go back and do what it is I need to do. I don't know if that makes sense to any of you, but I just wanted to share that point because in my travels I see a lot of devotees who aren't, and I'm not criticizing, it's an observation. And devotees have come to me and I get texts all the time, sometimes 30, about how do I get back to chanting my rounds, This is the first process. This is what Prabhupada started doing this right here, a few blocks from the Bhakti Center, chanting. And I think we need to stay on task with those simple things. And then gradually, the doors will open up for us. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Nama Loka Prabhu. Yes, no, I think you explained it perfectly. There are many messages in the chat about understanding what you're saying and how the basics are important. I think you spoke very beautifully and clearly. That was, I personally understood exactly what you were saying. Nancy said in the chat, I don't need to understand to accept. And I think that goes along with what you said about listening to it and relishing the pastimes and accepting them, as opposed to trying to really understand and drill down into something that might be above us. And for me, I agree with you 100%. This is way above my pay grade. I enjoy listening to it, but I'm not going to try to analyze how or why, because I can't do that. Anybody else?
This is not in contradiction of anything Prabhu just said, which is very beautiful. Reminds me of Vince Lombardi. You know who Vince Lombardi is? He was a coach for the Green Bay Packers, and they won the Super Bowl after a season of intense competition, coming to the highest level of performance. And then the day after that, he gathered the team together, and he said, okay, we're going to start to prepare for next year. And he said, we're going to go to the basics. And he said, gentlemen, this is a football. This is a football. So you start with the basics, of course. And interestingly enough, although it's like Prabhu was saying, it's above our pay grade. Just like a tiny child, 2-year-old, if you try to send them out into the street to cross First Avenue, that's ridiculous. They don't have the discernment, the understanding. Even a dog can't really understand these are cars and they're coming at so many miles an hour and it's dangerous. But if that 2-year-old child is holding the father's hand, he can easily go safely across the big street, right? Big city street. So Srila Prabhupada provided for us. There's a Supreme Lord who we are not, like Jumanjaya Mataji said, right? Then there's the conditioned soul. And then there are those who foolishly try to imitate the Lord, even though they're not on that level. Or they try to imitate a great devotee, even if they're not on the level. But Srila Prabhupada provided with the Krishna book, which tells these tremendously esoteric stories in a way, because he's holding us by the hand and walking us across the big street. So with the grace of the spiritual master, we can actually, fools rush in when angels dare to tread. We can actually go to some place where ordinarily it would be very precarious for us spiritually. So it's kind of interesting to know that it's not that there's no access. We should be cautious and apprehensive and not and do our due diligence so we don't stumble and fall in a dangerous situation by our consciousness. But also Srila Prabhupada is bringing us there. And we have this task at hand. Just yesterday we had someone come here to the Bhakti Center. And the class was about the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Rasa Leela, the girl who's staying with us as a guest on 8th Avenue. And she's just here for a few days. And she came to help with Krishna's prasad distribution for the homeless. And she said, oh, you're going to do you have a temple? Yeah, we have a temple. Okay, so she came in the car. We gave her beads, and she was chanting on the way over. And then I talked to her later because the class was a little bit intense. And I said, okay, so there's the Supreme Lord. Krishna's God. He's the Supreme Lord. And then he's offering ways that we can be elevated from the level of understanding we are at to the highest level. And he's helping us to go there. And it's something that even a child can understand. Prabhupada gives them one analogy. The spider, he makes a web. And any insect that touches that web, they're stuck. And then the spider comes out, ties them up, and consumes the... But the spider can walk all over his web without getting stuck, right? So there's someone above the creation. There's the creator. There's the transcendental level. And not only is that person not stuck in the web and entangled in fruitive activity, but because his consciousness is pure love, and he also is more intelligent and powerful than the creation, he can actually bring us up. If we don't think the spiritual master can bring us up, then what's the use of anything, you know? So there's the different levels, and this caution is appropriate. But on the other hand, the lotus feet of the spiritual master can bring us to the platform of pure devotional service, and he can bring us into the realm of seeing and understanding even something that's beyond our level. Anyway, maybe I'm talking too much. Oh, glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you. Yes, that was wonderful. I think the Vince Lombardi analogy is great. Going back to basics. It reminds me of a verse in the Bible from Matthew. I forget the full verse, but it's about a house being built on a foundation of sand. And if we aren't strong in our basics, in the foundation, the house will come down eventually. You know, and then the regular principles and chanting are really, 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 really important. So yeah, I agree with you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, one thing that Ananda Loka was saying that really stuck with me was when he said to go back to the basics, you know, the four regular principles and chant Hare Krishna. It's like when you simplify the machine, there's less grinding or something like that. And so you can really operate at a high performance with a simpler practice, especially at the neophyte level that I'm at. You know, when I try to do too much, I lose exactly what Ananda Loka was speaking about. When I'm, you know, here being fairly new at this and trying to do too much, I can lose sight of even the purpose of any one of the items that I'm doing. However, if I keep that kind of system of practices minimized so that I am working within my kind of bandwidth, then I think that I'm performing at a higher level. At least it feels more of a reciprocal relationship when I'm focused on, all right, here's where I can have that, you know, communication more clearly. You know, if I'm trying to speak on too many channels, then maybe I'm just trying to communicate too much or trying to receive too much.
Very good. You know, Prabhupada gives the analogy that where are we going with this? How do we measure success, right? We're trying to please Krishna. May Krishna continue to bless you with pure devotional service. Let me just sneeze. We're trying to please Krishna. We're not trying to be on the highest level, the way it is, but it's possible for anyone, at any time, if they do their humble best, Krishna will be pleased. And even a small child, they make a birthday card for their parent, and the letters are crooked, and it might be misspelled, but it just said, "Mom, I love you, happy birthday." It's perfect. It doesn't look like the store-bought happy birthday card that, you know, is printed by, you know, a professional. But it's done with love, and the kid did his best, therefore Krishna is pleased. So we don't have to be discouraged. I can't please Krishna. You can. You can offer a leaf, a flower, a fruit, anything with love. Lord, please accept this humble offering. Madan Gopal gave this amazing statement the other day. He said, if any one of us on any day, even casually says, Lord, I'm yours. I'm fallen, I make mistakes, but I want to give myself to you. And then Krishna's pleased, and Krishna will bring us up through all the different levels of maturity that we can. So we just have to say like that, Lord, I'm yours, and do our humble best today, and then perfect, because Krishna's pleased. I talk too much. I'll go to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I was going to quote Patram Pushram Palam Toyam Yome Bhakti Prayachati. And you just said it and it was perfect. It's awesome. Yes, exactly. There's the littlest thing we can do. If we do it with love and devotion, that's all we need to do. And Jeffrey, to go on your analogy of a machine, I was picturing my father used to be a printer, and I would visit him at his job, and he had a huge printing press that took up a room that must have been, 300 square feet or something, like just a huge room. And I remember he would show me how to feed the paper properly so that it wouldn't get jammed. And if you're focusing on too many things at once, we can encounter those jams, and then it backs up, and then we have to clear the jam and start all over again. But again, going slow and focusing on one thing at a time. Yeah, I really like that analogy. Jamuna Jaya.
Hare Krishna, I just had two thoughts after Ananda Loka had spoken so beautifully. Thank you, Prabhu, for speaking. I do a lot of service at the yoga studio on the second floor. And one of the things that we keep pitching is to have a beginner series and like have to teach people the basics of yoga, and people, because we see people coming in and going to the more advanced level classes and being bewildered and at worst maybe hurting themselves. And we were talking about it once, and the thing is, the yoga teachers say nobody wants to consider themselves a beginner. Everyone wants to jump right to the beginning. So I just was finding that because I see that all the time. But the other thing is, like our dear Damodar Priya, I spend a lot of my time around with children. And I think about that all the time. Children aren't afraid to not understand things and just to be lost in the wonder of things. And our society has sort of taken out the wonder. I think that's why sometimes people want to leap to the conclusion. It's also the instant gratification nature of our society. But, my husband sometimes joke, I'll say, I wonder what, and he says, if only there was a device in your pocket that could tell you everything, right? Because we've taken out the wonder aspect about so many things. Google, what is this? And in 2 seconds, I know the answer. And so I think that, like, I love the wonder of a child. They will just sit, I wonder why, they don't know. And then they'll just go with it. And we've lost the ability just to wonder and to be okay with there's something above our pay grade. I love that there's things that I'm bewildered by. I love that there's things about my pay grade because I'm not God. And so I think that we've lost that in our effort to be so bloody smart and to try to have control, because we just don't. But I think, again, it's one of those things, if we look at children, we see it. They're like, I don't know. And they can be unifying joy in the wonder of not knowing. So, Hare Krishna.
How do I get on?
Push this little. I can't see because it's pointed toward you.
I really enjoy that. Jamuna Jaya. Anand Loka?
Yeah, I just in follow up to it, I just would like to tell us a quick story. And Prabhupada once said in a class, or I remember him saying, it's one of the most beautiful things I heard. In me, I like simple things. I'm a very simple person, and I think that when you don't have so many too many things going on, and you can just really focus and keep things to the minimum, and you can absorb more. Anyway, the story is, Prabhupada once said that there was a woman in India, an older woman, and try to imagine this. And I think she was by the Radha Damodar temple. And her service, and she chanted. That's all she chanted. That's all she did was chant. And one of her services also was to go down to the river, and to bring water up for the pujaris for their seva. That was her service. That's all she did. And of course, she honored Prasadam, and just a very simple. And Prabhupada commented once that she's going back to Godhead. Now, if Prabhupada says that, there's none of us are in any position to doubt what Prabhupada said. I mean, so if Prabhupada says this, and he did say this, then we could take it to hold that in the behavior and in the attitude and in the dedication of this one woman keeping a simple task. Now, I know this day and age is very complicated. I mean, we're just overwhelmed. We're overwhelmed with media and these machines and so many things we engage ourselves into. But there is a way, if we really look at it, of toning things down and the essence. I mean, our first obligation is to be spiritual servants of the servant of the servant, Haridas Thakur, is an example. We have the Namacharya, and he's an example for us, and he just, look how many rounds he chanted. I mean, he had a prostitute standing there trying to engage him in her service, and it's, let me finish my rounds, and then we can enjoy, And she was so moved by this, by hearing this mantra. I mean, we all know this pastime. This is glorious. This is very simple. He wasn't, it wasn't some complicated arrangement. And he chanted, and what happened? What was the result of that? This woman she became a pure devotee herself, So I think in this day and age, and I even myself at this, being older, running around and it's like chasing, anyway, it's not chasing rhinos, that's for sure. Like but yeah, I think that, if we really put more time, and I just really have to, emphasize this point on this chanting, because it saved my life. I'm speaking practically. I came to Krishna consciousness. I couldn't read Prabhupada's books. I could not read Prabhupada's books. As a matter of fact, I couldn't do very much of anything. And the only thing I had was the holy name. So that's why I'm so adamant about saying, and maybe it's just me, because I'm in such a, helpless situation. But I'm telling you, I've traveled and I see devotees who are in pain, and they're not crying out Krishna's name, but yet they want to experience the rasa dance. It's contradictory, And again, I'm not criticizing devotees, because these same devotees have come to me, and I see this, and we all see this. We see this in ourselves, if we're really honest. So that's what I say about going back to basics, We lose grasp of it because we get so involved. It's just devotees are smarter than they need to be. Devotees are brilliant. They're wonderful. But we have this tendency, and we're hungry. We really do want to have a connection with Krishna. But I just want to emphasize that you can have this connection, and you can have it all. But I think that in numerous cases, we really, really, really have to taste, get a taste from the holy name. And our biggest example that we know is Srila Prabhupada. If you look at some of his tapes, if any of us have had the opportunity to travel, he always had his hands in his bead bag. Sometimes in conversations, you would see him in between, he would be chanting, this is, Lord Chaitanya himself, he left, the verses that he left, what did those verses, what did those verses emphasize? The holy name. Lord Chaitanya himself. So, I'm only speaking like this because I'm not so advanced. But I do know the importance, and I do know personally how the holy names and, just begging Krishna, please engage me, help me. My mind is crazy. What do I do in this mood of humility? This is where we need to focus our energy, in my small opinion. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Anandaloka Prabhu. Yes, I agree with you. Bhima, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, Haribol Prabhu. I'm going to have to go back. By the way, can I be heard?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear
Yes, okay. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch this class because it cut in and out. I'm out in the field, sort of in the forest of illusion, so to speak, on my farm. But I just wanted to say, as Ananda Loka and Adi and Jamuna Jaya and everybody speaking, how personal and how intimate this relationship is. And that personal, intimate relationship is bolstered, supported, and sheltered by our chanting, our calling out to Krishna. And that as Christ himself said, behold, because his disciples were, saying, you're going back to heaven, you are going to heaven above, etc., etc. And Christ had to reiterate that, behold, the kingdom of heaven is within. And I have come to understand over the years in Krishna consciousness, in my challenging and rebellious and non-surrendered ways, that whether it be smooth and a beautiful dance, or whether it be a beat down or a reprimand, we are constantly in a rasa dance with Krishna. That the rasa dance that we think is so esoteric and so high, we're in the middle of it. And as with the gopis having to go to the forest to leave their folks, their children, their husbands behind, in order to show up, to make themselves, as Adi Purush sings, available to Krishna, we ourselves make ourselves, first of all, we train ourselves to become available by rising in the morning, and whether it be 2 rounds or 16 rounds, to at least make a sincere attempt to say, Krishna, I'm yours. And then make yourself available throughout the day so that Krishna can lead you. And as we all see, Krishna really reciprocates when we want to do something in his service, and more expressly and implicitly in the service of other devotees, because it's so much easier to know that you're serving another devotee. You get reciprocation. It comes from within, whether it be that joy within your heart, the enthusiasm that's literally infused into your heart to do harder work, to work, more joyfully in Krishna service, and also in the instant reciprocation from the other devotees who are happy with your presence and your help. Many hands makes the labor light. So I just wanted to say that because, whether it be, like I said, whether you're getting a reprimand by Krishna, if Krishna's, if we're paying attention, if we're introspecting, if we're, as Jamuna Jaya said, wonder, if we can pause long enough to say, I wonder why this is happening to me. It's Krishna, but what is the lesson I need to learn? That's the rasa dance. That's the true thing. Krishna, if we're dancing too close, if we're getting a little bit too familiar, Krishna may step on our toes in the dance and we'll have to back off, or if, et cetera, et cetera. So these are all the things that we can do to maintain this constant connection to Krishna and the devotees, is to always say to ourselves, if it is true that Krishna is always dancing with us, then what steps and what rhythm and what music am I going to follow? Hare Krishna.
Very cool. Thank you, Bhima. That was wonderful. Kingdom of God is within. I believe we have a minute or so before Darshan. Is that correct, Adi Prabhu?
There's an old saying in the Bible, choose ye this day whom you will serve. And Dayal Garanga was giving a class quoting Bob Dylan. Everybody's got to serve somebody. It might be the devil, it might be the Lord, but you got to serve somebody. So Das Anu Das, we are serving Krishna, but we don't approach Krishna directly. We approach through the Guru, and if the Guru is not present, we pray and Krishna will give us something. I'm thinking back over the different authorities that I've been assigned to work under. The temple president, Harm Brahman, Ardamuni, Sundakar, Prabhu, you know, and each one of them cared for me. And I knew, like there's a book, Thomas the Kempis,
Yeah.
Imitation of Christ, and it says in there, well done, my good and faithful servant. So when there's somebody that says that you're serving, who are you doing it for? Which servants are the servant? If you have many gurus, you have no guru in one sense, Prabhupada said. So if we're taking shelter of somebody, we're assisting somebody, we're inspired by somebody, we're pleasing somebody, we do something, we say, how is this? And they say, well done, my good and faithful servant. And that's our success. So we may think, you know, to be very highly elevated, this and that, but when the person we're serving says, good job, then we know Krishna's pleased. We don't jump over, we don't just, I mean, you can do a little service, something here and there, but when you're actually, when the disciple is ready, the guru appears in our life, Prabhupada said. When you really want the shelter of somebody who you can love, who's worthy of your trust and obedience, and Krishna gives you that person. And then we have the choice whether to please that person or just jump all over the place like a monkey jumping from one tree to another, you know. And we were in the realm of devotional service, but becoming fixed on a particular servant and being faithful to that servant is very pleasing to Krishna. Prabhupada said, bloom where you're planted. So we have that desire, and Krishna will grant that desire. He will send us someone worthy of our trust and obedience, and then we can try to please them and ask them, how is this? Is this good? You know, anyway, that's what I've heard from my guru. Regards to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Hadi. Thank you. Will we be having darshan of the deities this morning?
I hope so. I would say the deities are late, but the pujaris are a little late there. Yes, lots of
Anybody
love.
have final thoughts then before we have a couple more minutes, it seems? Anybody want to share anything? This was wonderful today. Really great. Glad that I'm sorry that Damodar Priya is not feeling well, but I'm glad I got the opportunity to spend time with all of you and to hear such wonderful pieces of wisdom from each of you.
All right, here they come.
Oh, great.
Anandachimaya sadhu Gara Vigrahatya Govinda
All right, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you so much for today. Remember, Bhagavatam class is every day, and we will see you tomorrow. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and try to remember